I'm 84 years old. My wife is 81, and I need to tell you something while I still can. For 30 years, I thought I was building something important. I thought I was doing what a man was supposed to do. Turns out I was just absent. I sit here now, where my grandchildren play on Sunday afternoons, and I can hear Margaret in the kitchen. She's laughing about something, but it wasn't always so. I married Margaret in 1963. I was 23. She wore a cream-colored dress her mother made, and when she walked down the aisle of that little Presbyterian church on Elm Street, I remember thinking I'd won something, like life had handed me a prize I didn't deserve. We moved into a small rental house, 2 bedrooms. The kitchen cabinets didn't close right, and the furnace made this rattling sound every morning at 6. I can still hear it if I close my eyes. I worked at a machine parts distributor, started in the warehouse, loading trucks, the smell of motor oil and cardboard. I'd come home with my hands black, and Margaret would already have dinner waiting. She'd ask me about my day. I'd tell her it was fine. That's how it started, with fine. Our first son, David, was born in 1965. I was in the hospital waiting room when the nurse came out and told me I had a boy. I remember I shook the hand of the man sitting next to me, a stranger. Just grabbed his hand and shook it because I didn't know what else to do with the feeling. When I held David for the first time, his face was red and pinched. He smelled like powder and something else, something new. I thought, this is it. This is the reason. But I was 25 and scared. Scared we wouldn't have enough. Scared I'd end up like my father, working in the same factory for 40 years, coming home too tired to talk. So I worked harder. The distributor promoted me to sales, then to regional manager. I started traveling, Tuesdays and Thursdays to start, then 3 days a week, then 4. I'd call home from hotel rooms that all smelled the same. Margaret would tell me David learned to walk, or that he said a new word, or that he cried all night with a fever. I'd say that's great, or I'm sorry, or I'll be home soon. Our second son, Michael, was born in 1968. I missed it. I was in Cleveland closing a contract. Margaret's sister drove her to the hospital. I got there 2 days later. She said it was okay, but I could see something in her face. Not anger, something quieter, like a door closing somewhere deep inside. In 1972, I started my own business. I took out a loan against the house. I told Margaret it would be worth it. 2 years, maybe 3, and we'd be set. She just nodded. I remember the boys were 7 and 4. David had started Little League. Margaret asked me if I could make it to his first game on Saturday. I said I'd try. I didn't make it. I was at the warehouse doing inventory, alone. I got home around 7. I asked how the game went. She said, "He asked where you were." That's all she said. The business grew. We moved to a bigger house in 1975. I bought Margaret a new dining room set, told her to pick out whatever she wanted. She picked the cheapest one in the store. I worked 6 days a week, sometimes 7. I'd leave before the boys woke up and come home after they were in bed. Margaret stopped asking me to come to things. School plays, teacher conferences, birthday parties. She just handled it. We stopped talking. Not in a loud way. Not with fights or slammed doors. We just drifted. Like two people in separate rooms who forgot there was a door between them. I told myself it was temporary. Once the business was stable, once we had enough saved, once the boys were older, always once. David graduated high school in 1983. I made it to the ceremony. He looked right past me when he got his diploma. I waved anyway. He went to college 3 hours away, came home for Christmas and Thanksgiving, polite, distant, like I was a relative he didn't know well. Michael graduated in 1986. Same thing, polite, distant. I kept working. Margaret and I lived in the same house like roommates. We'd sit at the same table for dinner, sleep in the same bed, but we were alone. I remember one night in 1989, I was 50. We were watching the news. She got up and went to the kitchen. I heard the faucet running, and I realized I couldn't remember the last time we'd touched, not even by accident. I thought about getting up, going to her, saying something, but I didn't know what to say. So I stayed where I was. Then, on a Tuesday morning in November 1993, everything stopped. Margaret was walking to her car in the grocery store parking lot. A truck backing out didn't see her, hit her from the side. I got the call at work. A nurse from the hospital. Your wife has been in an accident. You need to come now. I don't remember the drive. I remember the hospital lights, white and too bright. A doctor in green scrubs telling me Margaret had fractured her spine. She'd never walk again. I stood in that hallway and felt the floor tilt. I took time off work for the first time in 15 years. I sat in the chair next to her bed every day. When she came home, we converted the dining room into a bedroom, got a hospital bed, a wheelchair. I learned to help her transfer from the bed to the chair, learned to prepare her medications, learned to cook meals I'd never made before. I stopped going to the office. My partner took over. I'd handle things from home when I could, but mostly I was with Margaret. And something strange happened. We started talking again. At first, it was just practical things. Do you need water? Is the pillow okay? But then, slowly, it became more. One afternoon, maybe 2 months after the accident, I was helping her into her chair. My hand slipped and I apologized. She laughed, actually laughed. She said, "You're not very good at this." I said, "No, I'm not." And she said, "But you're here. I can't explain it." After 30 years of silence, we started finding our way back. I'd read to her in the evenings, books she picked from the library. We'd talk about the boys, about memories I'd almost forgotten. She told me about David's first day of kindergarten, how he cried and held her hand. I wasn't there. I was at work. She told me about Michael's science fair project, how they'd built a volcano together at the kitchen table and it had exploded all over the floor. I wasn't there. I was on a business trip. She didn't say it to hurt me. She just remembered, and I listened. I told her I was sorry for all of it, for the games I missed, for the dinners I skipped, for the years I spent in my office while she raised our sons alone. She didn't say it was okay, because it wasn't, but she took my hand, held it, and she said, "You're here now." The boys started coming around more. At first, I think they came out of obligation because their mother needed help. But then they stayed longer. David would sit with Margaret and talk about his job, his life. Michael would bring his kids, our grandchildren. I'd watch them from the kitchen, hear their voices in the next room, and I'd think about all the years I could have had this. I learned Margaret's routines, her favorite tea, the way she liked her blankets folded, things a husband should have known after 3 decades, things I'd never bothered to notice. We started holding hands again. Small thing. But when you've lived in separate worlds for 30 years, holding hands feels enormous. One evening, maybe a year after the accident, we were sitting together. I was reading her a book. She stopped me mid-sentence. She said, "Do you remember our honeymoon?" I said I did. She said, "We drove to the lake, that little cabin your uncle owned. It rained the whole weekend." I remembered. We'd stayed inside, played cards, made love on a mattress that squeaked. She said, "I was so happy." Her voice cracked when she said it. I put the book down. I took her hand. She said, "I waited a long time for you to come back." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just held her hand tighter. She said, "I'm glad you did. Some days were hard. Margaret would get frustrated with her body, with needing help, with being stuck. Some days I'd get frustrated too, with myself, with the weight of what I'd lost. But we were together, finally, actually together. David and Michael came around more, brought their families. Our house, which had been so quiet for so long, filled up again. Noise, laughter, grandchildren running through the hallways. I'd sit in my chair and watch Margaret with them. She'd light up in a way I hadn't seen in years. Decades, maybe. I'm 84 now. Margaret is 81. The kids help us now. We can't manage alone anymore. But we're not alone. I look at her every day and I see the girl in the cream-colored dress. I see the woman who waited, who raised our boys, who held the house together while I chased something that didn't matter. I got a second chance. Not many people do. An accident that could have taken her gave me back something I'd already lost. I don't know how much time we have left, but whatever it is, I'm here for it. All of it. I wish I'd learned that sooner. I wish I'd come home earlier, listened harder, held her hand more. But I can't go back. Nobody can. All I can do is sit here now and be grateful she let me come back at all. If you're out there building something, thinking you'll have time later, I'm just telling you what I learned. Later runs out. The people you love don't wait forever. I almost lost everything before I realized I had it. Don't do what I did.